Welcome, everybody. The 2L summer associate recruiting process has a lot of moving parts, different application timelines, materials, differences between firms, engaging with attorneys, and other pieces. We saw that 1Ls who are embarking on the 2L recruiting process have many of the same questions about navigating 2L recruiting and how to find success in the process. So here at Summer Associate Hub, we've created our live virtual recruiting director Q&A, one of our most popular and helpful programs to help students hear directly from firms as the 2L process gets started. My name is Albert from Summer Associate Hub. I'm proud to have you all here. My last name's not actually from Summer Associate Hub, but if you're with us, you are in for a treat and you will learn a lot. I'm surrounded by some of the best and most thoughtful people in this business, and I really mean that. We're gonna get to some intros in a minute. But before we jump in, what is Summer Associate Hub? Summer Associate Hub is a free content and resource hub for law students embarking on the 1L and 2L recruiting process. I'm a former law student and BigLaw associate. We know from our own experience here how hard it is as a 1L to understand what it's really like to work as a lawyer and engage with firms. Our platform, summerassociatehub.com, has blog posts, podcast episodes, short video tutorials and exercises, interviews with attorneys, and other content to help you learn about practice areas and prepare for the recruiting process. We also host live virtual programs. If that's a surprise to you, it shouldn't be because you're watching one right now. And students can easily learn from and network with law firm attorneys and recruiting team members. We have some really nice programs scheduled for this semester. This recruiting director Q&A, we have a fantastic program this Wednesday, Introduction to Specialty Practice Areas. And we have a junior associate Q&A on April 1st, which is really nice. So stay tuned in our newsletter for updates on all that. We're also hosting our annual in-person 2L job fair featuring many of the firms on this session. That's happening this May. And pre-registration is open, and you should be receiving info as part of our newsletter. I'm also going to send the pre-registration link in the chat during our session tonight for you to join our initial waitlist. The best way to stay updated is to sign up for our newsletter, summerassociatehub.com/newsletter. If you're signed up for this event, don't worry, we added you. All right, so jumping into this event, we're going to have a panel discussion for about 40 minutes. We'll try to stay on time. At the end of the panel discussion, the firms have also graciously offered to raffle off some pretty awesome swag, so we'll do that. We're going to post a link in the chat to join the raffle. You have to be present to win, and we're going to be calling your name live on the air, so keep that in mind if you join the raffle. At the end of the panel, at about 8:10, 8:15 Eastern time, each firm will host a separate breakout room where you can pop in, ask questions, and meet some of the firm's team members. The breakout rooms are going to be available in this Zoom event, so stay tuned for instructions on that. We have our Q&A open, which you just used to let us know where you're calling in from. I'm going to be keeping an eye on the Q&A throughout the session, so feel free to use the Q&A functionality for any questions that you have. And we're really hoping to have time at the end for some questions, especially because this is a Q&A. All right, so let's get started. I'm going to let each panelist go ahead and introduce themselves just in order of my screen. So Ashley, I'm going to start with you. Why don't you go ahead?
Thanks, Albert. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. I'm Ashley Grinchis. I'm the Associate Director of Campus Recruiting and Engagement at MoFo, and I oversee our firm-wide entry-level hiring as well as our summer associate program, and then also recruiting for patent agents and analysts. I sit in the San Francisco office, but you can often find me on the East Coast as well. And this will be my 11th summer program at MoFo. So again, really excited to speak with you all tonight.
Great, Cherie, on to you.
Okay, hi everybody. I am Cherie Beffa. I'm the Chief Attorney Recruiting Officer at Wilson Sonsini. I sit in our Los Angeles office, or actually both of them. I've been at the firm for about 5 years. I oversee all of the non-partner hiring, so all of the entry-level, lateral, anything but partners, including patent agents, everything from summer programs to laterals, onboarding, and all that. I've been in the industry a long time. I spent 23 years at Kirkland & Ellis, and before that, 9 years at Gibson, Dunn & Crutcher, and was also a former NALT president. So hopefully I can answer any questions that you may have.
Great, thanks, Cherie. Rachel, on to you.
Hi, everyone. I'm Rachel Kleiner. I'm the Legal Recruiting Officer at Proskauer. I've been at Proskauer at this point going on 12 years this year. Before that, I was at another firm in recruiting, and prior to that, I was a practicing lawyer in DC, litigation, international trade, FCPA, all of that good stuff in another lifetime. I oversee all of the same as Cherie, non-partner lateral hiring. So lateral associates, summers, clerks, patent, tech specs, all of that good stuff. So excited to be here.
Great, thanks, Rachel. Nancy, last but not least.
Thanks, Albert. It's really lovely to be with you guys tonight. My name is Nancy Parker. I'm the Director of Attorney Recruitment at Fried Frank. I have been in recruiting for about 23 years, and 18 of those years have been with Fried Frank. I oversee the summer associate program, entry-level hiring, judicial clerks, and LLM hiring. So excited to get into it tonight.
Great, amazing. So let's get started. So first question, excuse me, what is the best way for a student to stand out and land a screening interview? So the first step is for a student to actually apply and hopefully get that first screening interview. So in the initial application or the initial outreach, what is the best way for a student to stand out? Cherie, I'm going to start with you for this one.
Okay. I would say, especially in this new world where OCI is, all but dead, I think that you need to really consider whether or not you're ready to hit the submit button. And what I mean by that is you really need to be ready to apply. You've done your research. You figured out where you want to be. First, geography, where do you want to be in terms of geography? And if it's multiple places, know why you might be interested in multiple places. If you are interested in a particular practice group, know what practice group that you're interested in, why you're interested in that practice group, and what offices of that firm that you might be interested might be hiring in that practice. So you have to do a lot of research right now to figure out where you might fit. And you also have to figure out, are you going to be hired into a practice group? Or are you going to want to rotate during or dabble during your summer program? And then you have to figure out which firms are going to allow you to do that. And so there's just a lot of things that you need to do to set yourself up for success by preparing and doing your research to make sure that you're ready to move. And then I would also say that you need to make sure that you've done some mock interviews. Once you've decided where you want to apply, you need to know that you're ready to move. In this new market, if you submit your resume and it's interesting and somebody wants to give you an interview, it's very possible that you're going to show up with an offer the next day. And then you have to be prepared to accept that offer. And we'll talk a little bit more about that later. But again, you need to be sure that you are ready to enter this pipeline when you submit your resume. If not, then you might be foregoing an opportunity that you would have otherwise had. So just make sure that you are ready when you submit.
Oh, that's great. Thanks, Cherie. Rachel, I'm curious for your thoughts on this too.
Yeah, I agree with everything that Cherie said. First of all, I just want to say, like, for everyone watching, it's going to be okay. You're all going through it in this crazy world the same way that your classmates are going through it. To be frank, the same way that we're going through it. I've been doing this for 15 years. It's crazy, right? We're all in this together. So don't feel like if you're up at night with anxiety, like I'm up at night with anxiety too. It's going to be okay. So let me just preface what I'm going to say by saying that, right? So like, take a deep breath, you'll be fine. I think it's important to know that a lot of you have likely done a lot of work beforehand, right? You've gone to 1L receptions, you've gone to the mock interviews that Cherie mentioned, you've done a lot of stuff. So a lot of the work that you've put into all of this is going to kind of pay in dividends, right? So when a portal opens, if you've gone to 3 receptions and you know a bunch of lawyers, don't just send your resume. Give those lawyers a heads up. Hey, I'm so excited to see the Proskauer's portal open today, which it did. I've gone to 3 events already. It was really great chatting with you. Just wanted to let you know I've applied. Could you just let recruiting know that I'm in your pipeline? That will go a long way because they will shoot us an email and tell us, and we can go check your materials. So I think don't ignore all of the work that you've done beforehand. Make sure that you're tying it into the application process right now, because that is really, in addition to the research and making sure that you're applying to the firms that you want to be at, all the work you've done in advance is really starting to pay off now.
And that's great advice because, like you mentioned, so much engagement happening throughout the school year. And one question we get from students a lot is, how can I actually take advantage of that engagement to get the advantage in the process? So that's great advice. So follow-up question to the initial application part of it. So one change that we've observed, just speaking with firms and schools throughout with the changes in pre-OCI recruiting, is that firms are now able to review candidates from a wider variety of schools outside of OCI. So for a 1L rising 2L at a school that may not have a huge pipeline for BigLaw traditionally, what can that student do in particular to stand out in the process? So I'm going to just tee it up for whoever wants to chime in on that, but I think it's an important question.
I think I'll just take it. I think have a reason why you're applying to that firm, right? If you're not traditionally, I sit in the New York office, but we have a feeder schools that are in New York and Chicago and DC and LA and et cetera, right? So those are schools that we generally go to in addition to other of our general feeder schools. If you're not in a market where we have an office and we don't have a strong alumni base, have a reason why you want to come to Proskauer, right? Do you have family in New York? Do we have a niche practice that you're interested in? Is there a reason that you want to be here? Because that tells me that you're not just peppering every firm in the country with your application. There's a reason you want to be here. And in the same way that students want to be wanted, firms want to be wanted too. So like make us feel special, for lack of a better phrase. And then I think that makes a big difference.
I'd agree with that, and say, and don't say that you're open. Know that you are interested in the New York office and the LA office, whatever office that might be, and whatever practice group, or if you know that it's a rotation program, make sure that you know what you're applying for. You don't want to make a mistake in that first early outreach. You just want to know why you're there. Why are you in the room? Why are you applying? And interest makes a huge difference.
No, that's really great, and especially as easy it is now to apply directly, making sure that application is worth it is great advice. All right, so now what's moving through the timeline of the application process. So once a student actually has an interview, what is the best way for a student to stand out in the interview process? So Ashley, I'm going to come to you here.
Okay, great. So I have a few tips for preparing for your interview. So first of all, you should research the firm in advance and prepare some thoughtful answers to the common questions. These are already mentioned so far in the panel, but just really practicing why you're interested in the firm compared to others and what practice areas you might be interested in. I think that part of your research should be to find out whether the firm that you're interviewing with hires into departments, practice areas, or general rotation. And then you should adjust your answer to the practice areas that you're interested in accordingly. So for example, like at MoFo, we typically hire into general litigation or general transactions. So you should be able to articulate the department that you're most interested in and why. Also, as part of your prep, I would recommend preparing for some common behavioral interview questions. Some softball ones that you can expect to get are related to working on a team, persevering in a high pressure situation, and also providing customer client service and any past work experience. I always find that the candidates that are most memorable are those that can also weave in part of their personal story. So the extent that you can, when you're answering some of these basic questions, also weaving in some of your hobbies and personal accomplishments, I think that always leaves a really good impression. And then lastly, on my prepping for interview tip list, you should also research the attorneys and recruiters that you'll be speaking with and have a few questions prepared for each of them. Also, just remember that you are interviewing the firm as much as they are interviewing you. So be sure to ask any questions about anything that's really important to you. Some examples of those could be asking about affinity groups or support for working parents, but really just think about what matters to you and weave that into your prep for interviews.
That's great. Nancy, I'm going to come to you for this one. Anything to add?
I completely agree with, everything that everybody's saying. I think the key here is preparedness. And I think showing up with intentionality, and that may lead into the next question that you're going to ask, Albert, but showing that you have been thoughtful and strategic about why, especially in this environment, because students are coming at us and no fault of their own, but they're coming at us pretty quickly and pretty aggressively. And so to stand out in this process, have your reason why. Why are we your number one or your top 5? And, if you've connected with attorneys too, there's no shame in mentioning that you've spent some time talking to people. And attorneys can be your biggest advocate, your biggest champion, even if you're not necessarily getting to a recruiter. But attorneys will also follow up and say, hey, Ashley has an interview today and, I took her for coffee, or I did, we did a Zoom. All of that stuff kind of matters, but it's showing up with intention, which I know in this environment is really hard. And I want to echo Rachel that we're all going to be okay, but you have to be smart about how you're doing this. And you can't just sort of throw spaghetti at a wall. You have to have an understanding of what the firms do, why there's something about that firm that can get you to that next step, and why you'd be a good team member, more talent on the bench.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So moving into the next question, as you alluded to, one of the most common questions we get. So what are the most common mistakes or pitfalls that you see students make during the process? Nancy, I'm going to stick with you for this one.
So I'll go back to my aggressiveness. It's and I think Cherie set us up the right way. It's if you're going at a place and you're really excited, you got to be prepared to run with the firm. And so if the firm is matching your level of enthusiasm and they're bringing you in early and they're extending an offer early, you have to be prepared to accept it or have a pretty good reason as to why you were banging down the door to get in there. And then I also just think it's not preparing the best application that you could. It's going back to Cherie's initial opening statement of if you're not ready to do it, you're not confident in the materials that you have, then don't go there until you're ready to just sort of make a deal with us kind of a thing. But sometimes that aggression too can get a little crazy if you're talking to every attorney at the firm and not giving us a chance as the recruiters to catch up with you. That can be slightly off-putting if we're hearing from a million people that you're, talking about why Fried Frank or why, Wilson or Proskauer or, MoFo, but you're not telling us why. So just having some patience too. I don't know if others have a thought.
Yeah, curious for any other thoughts from the rest of the panel.
Nancy, you said it perfectly. All of those things are absolutely there. And also, little things that can hurt you, right? You put the wrong firm in the cover letter. Talk about something little, or the wrong recruiter's name. You notice that, our eye is drawn to that. So it's not a death sentence, but it's just, make sure you are presenting your best self every time you submit a resume or a cover letter or any materials. And then when you're in the interview, make sure that you're prepared to discuss everything on your resume. If you have your undergraduate thesis on there, remember what that was about, because somebody might have, done something similar and then they want to talk about it. Attorneys aren't looking to catch you. They're really looking to find a connection. And so anything on your resume is going to be fair game, and somebody might be passionate about something that's on your resume. And usually that's where they're going with the question. And then if you say, oh, I don't remember, it's kind of like the buzzkill, and you don't want to go there. It's, they'll remember that. The one thing that drives me nuts is the languages. If you put that you're fluent in a language, please make sure that you're prepared to do your entire interview in that language. And again, it's back to the attorneys trying to find a connection. It's usually not trying to catch you, but I got to tell you, a lot of people are caught that way. I had one attorney who was fluent in 9 languages. And so he used to always break the ice by starting the interview in that language. And I just felt sorry for so many candidates after a while, because his intention was absolutely good. It was not meant to catch people, but it caught people all the time. So please just make sure, take a look at your resume, edit, change things around. And if you find something that was on your resume or in a cover letter, send it to the recruiter and say, hey, I caught a mistake. This is what it is. Here it is. Don't say, oh, I just updated my GPA or something like that, which could be also what it is, but just tell us what it is, because chances are we've already found the typo or what have you. Just be transparent. I can't stress enough that transparency is key in this process. Don't tell one attorney that you're interested in tax and then tell the other attorney that you're interested in real estate. They'll talk. And so just, faking interest in something isn't going to serve you well.
I love this question because there's so many things there are so many things we can uncover. I'm actually curious if anyone else has something to add from your experience so many years doing this, because this really does cover so many common pitfalls. Anything to add for the rest of the panel?
How about I have no questions? Everybody needs to list questions.
And I'm going to put in a plug for Summer Associate Hub, because we have so much good content when it comes to interviewing, especially about coming up with questions to be prepared with, coming with certain reasons why you might be interested in the firm, and just having it in your back pocket, even if the conversation doesn't lead in a direction where you're expecting. To your point, Cherie, take advantage of the content we have on Summer Associate Hub to prepare for some of those conversations, because it can really save you if you're in a bind and you want to show that you're prepared, or at least you have something that you can add to the conversation. So this is really great. All right, so the next question. So with the timing of 2L hiring accelerated, firms may be interviewing and extending offers to students at different times, which is a problem that has been obviously come up with the last few years. So what advice do you have for a student who is considering an offer that is expiring but still might want to go through the process with other firms? So Rachel, I'm going to start with you here.
The $1 million question. So I think it's really important to be honest with firms And it's also really important to understand where the firms are coming from. So if you are applying to a firm with a class size, making it up, Proskauer, New York, between 30 and 40 summers generally, we can only have X amount of offers out at one time in order to manage our yield. If you are applying to a firm where many of my esteemed colleagues have summer programs of 150 summers in New York, that is a very different hiring proposition. So understand the size of the class that you're applying to, and know that if you're applying early to a summer class and they give you an offer, they're less likely to be able to give you a significant extension because we're managing our yield. And every percentage and every yield that we relied on in the last decade of doing this no longer exists because it's the Wild West. So I think first of all is, to what Cherie said, understand who you're applying to and do your research. Class size is going to have a real impact on whether or not firms are going to be able to give you an extensions. If you are not ready to interview with me because you're not ready to accept my offer, that is totally fine. I am not going to blackball you. If we've had a conversation and I really like you and our lawyers like you and we think it's a good fit, if you're not ready to commit and you tell me, I invite you for a call back and you say, I'd like to postpone for a little bit. That's okay. I can't promise you that we're going to have a spot when you're ready to interview with us, but that's okay. It's a thoughtful, mature, educated decision that you're making, and we respect that. And I've had those conversations with people. So just know that if you're having open and honest conversations with the recruiters, especially, because I will say in this instance, the lawyers are great. They don't know all the nuance of what's going on right now because we are figuring it out as we're going. So if you have questions about timing, about deadlines, about extensions, it's really important that you have those conversations with the recruiters, because we are kind of the ones like in the weeds. So I say, be open, communicate, and have your handful of dream firms that if you give me an offer, I'll accept right now and let's go. And for everyone else, just know that if you're not ready to move, like Nancy said, there may or may not be a spot. You'll land someplace. Again, it'll all work out, but we're just trying to manage the process the best that we can. And class size, I cannot stress the importance of how class size changes the psyche of a firm's willingness to make offers and give extensions. It's how we manage our yield.
Yeah, no, and I love that point. And if I may, I'm going to add one thing. Something I didn't appreciate until I was doing this over the last 2 or 3 years is how important the class size is. And I think when it comes to offer deadlines, I think oftentimes the initial reaction from students is, oh, well, that's so unfair, right, that I have an offer expiring. For firms, especially with smaller class sizes, oftentimes that offer needs to expire so they can give that offer to the next person. And sometimes you're the next person. So sometimes this benefits you. If you're the next in line and your classmate is sitting on an offer, that might take that away from you. But by a firm having a deadline, that's making it fair for the student who's waiting and interested and ready and able to take that offer. So just keep that, I didn't have that perspective until until I was in the weeds of this. And I think it's a very important perspective for students to have, kind of zooming in and understanding how the whole process works. So really,
sorry, Albert,
please.
Really want to distinguish, if there's a firm that's giving you 24 hours, that's a different story, right?
Yeah.
You should still, as a student, as an educated consumer, as someone deciding about their career, be able to get an offer, think about the offer, have conversations with career services, with your colleagues, with whatever. So I'm not talking about the 24-hour call me back before the sun goes down or else it's expired, right? That's an exploding offer. Giving someone 2 weeks or 3 weeks, while it seems really early right now because it's March and it's crazy that we're doing this, that's not an exploding offer. So I think people throw around exploding offer a lot right now, and everyone thinks if it expires before June 15th, it's exploding. It's not. I mean, by my definition, the rest of the panel can correct me. Exploding is you have 24 hours. I'm not giving you a chance to think about it. What firms are doing is they're just trying to manage their numbers.
Yeah, that's a great point. Cherie, I'm actually curious if you have any other thoughts to add here on this one.
No, I mean, you hit that one right on the head. That one's, absolutely perfect. The other thing I might add is, let's say if you're not ready to move, right? You know that you're not quite ready. Why aren't you ready? Is it because you don't know, you want to be in a corporate practice, but you don't know the difference between tech trans, you don't know the difference between general corporate. What does that mean for me? Call the recruiter and say, hey, could I speak to an attorney in each of these groups to help me understand so that I can get a better sense of where I want to be. Those kinds of questions are absolutely appropriate. That's what we're here for. We're trying to help you make those connections so that we all make the decision. I think a lot of people are going to make mistakes this year. I really think that this is really early for all of you to decide what you want to do. And so you need to do a lot more research than ever before. And yeah, I've got to think that it's going to be a really good 3L market next year, because it's just going to be tough. I think it's going to be tough this year to actually have to know right away what you want to do. But we're here to help you get there. And so use the resources that you have, and we're all here to help you.
Yeah, and I think it goes back to the point of, this process is about getting the right job, not just getting a job, and use the recruiters to your advantage to understand if the firm is right for you. Obviously, without too much pressure, it's not something to be the only job of your career, but doing the best you can. And joining a program like this is a great way of doing that, in addition to stuff on campus and all the other ways that you can engage with firms. So I think that's exactly right. All right, so many firms will be interviewing before. This is another really common question. We saw a few folks popping this in the Q&A. So many firms will be interviewing before second semester grades are released, whether that is during the semester, shortly after finals, while the professors are still grading. So what is your advice for a student who applying before second semester grades are out, and then updating their grades with the firm once they are released? Ashley, I'm going to start with you here.
Great, thanks, Albert. So I think the first thing to realize is that firms do realize when grades are coming out. So they're very aware that if you're applying for one of their early programs or once applications open, that you won't have your full semester of grades. So you should definitely still apply. To reiterate what everyone has said on the panel, if you're ready to move forward. So you can go ahead and apply with your first semester grades. And then I think the best way is, once you get your full set of second semester grades, is to reach out to the recruiter that you're working with if you've already been contacted or are within the interview process. If you aren't, you're still waiting to hear back from the firm, which might be quite normal just because of the volume that we're all dealing with. I would recommend either emailing if there's a general contact for recruiting, or some of the applicant tracking systems actually allow you to go in and upload your transcript. Flow Recruit is what I think a lot of us are using, and it does allow you to do that. So that's always super helpful because then the recruiter doesn't have to do it themselves. So I would actually, if you could do that, upload it yourself and then just ping the recruiting team and let them know that you have uploaded it.
And Nancy, anything to add there?
I would just say, to the extent you can pay attention to any information that is out there to understand the policies of how each firm is going to do their hiring. Some firms may not need that second semester. Some firms may require it. Some firms may see you and then hold the offer until they get the second semester set of grades. These are questions you absolutely can ask. I think what we're all trying to emphasize with you guys is, while this is a really fast process, you have the right to ask questions about what exactly is the timeline, what do you need in order to make a decision, and then pay attention to the deadlines if you have to upload things by a certain time frame. But the recruiters are here to help you outline that stuff. And also, full disclosure, we're figuring it out too at the same time of how the deadlines are moving and changing. But I think just understand, when you go to apply to a firm, how are they going to be making their decision? And while this might be annoying to hear, it may also depend on the relationship that a firm has with you. If they have been in something with you for the last 6 or 7 months, the last academic year, they may be ready to make a decision outside of having that full set of grades. So in some instances, there'll be direct protocol. Other instances, it might be moving outside of that and making a decision on the fly. So just ask. No one will fault you for asking. And I think it was Cherie that said it, like, transparency between both parties is key, and the firms will do their best. But where there's clear information, just try your best to navigate that and pay attention to deadlines.
That's really great. And just a quick reminder to everyone, we're getting some really good questions in the Q&A. So if you haven't already, if you have a burning question, feel free to pop it in the Q&A. Keeping an eye on it, and we're going to make sure to save a few minutes at the end for some of these good questions. Also, a reminder, just keep an eye on the chat. We posted the link there to sign up for the raffle, which we're going to do in a little bit. And we're also posting the links to all the different firms on this panel, the Firm 1L mailing list, so you can stay in touch with the firm and some other information the firm's provided to us. So to take a look at the chat, and we've also posted the link to our job fair to pre-register. So make sure you take a look at that. All right, so next question. Also one that comes up often. Some firms ask students to complete assessments, behavioral assessments as part of the 2L application process. So we'd love for you to talk a little bit about what those are and how those are actually used by the firm. So Nancy, I'm going to come back to you to start for this one.
Sure. So we are one of the firms that uses the suited assessment. And if you're not familiar with that, it's basically they create an algorithm. So you only take the test once, and they work with each individual firm to create that specific firm's profile. And so your assessment is run through against each firm's algorithm to determine what a profile of success looks like. So there's no right answer. I have a lot of students asking me, what did I score? And that doesn't matter because there's no right or wrong score on this. It's just matching a firm profile. The way we use it is as a complement. In this environment, it is so hard for people to distinguish themselves, especially if you do not have a pre-existing relationship with a firm. It's another way for us to learn about your story. What are your strengths? How do you think? There are different versions of them. I think there's Pymetrics and Thine and Parker Analytics. So they could be annoying. You could take it and think this is reminding you of the LSAT or like some sort of game, and why are you putting me through this again? But it's used as an additional data point. I don't think any firm is really using it to kick somebody out of the process. It's there to say, okay, if we only have one semester's worth of grades, we haven't met this person. How do they stack against the profile of what a typical Fried Frank attorney who is successful, where do they complement us on those scores? So it's used as an add-in, a plus. It is not used as a gotcha or to get you out.
Oh, that's great. Ashley, I know this is a topic we've talked about a lot. Curious for your thoughts here.
Thanks, Albert. And Nancy, you did an A+ job describing suited and assessments. We also use suited at MoFo. And just as Nancy said, it's used to evaluate your cognitive skills as well as your behavioral traits. And as Nancy said, there is no right answer, but instead there really is a spectrum of behavioral traits where you will fall for the ones that you express the most during the assessment. At MoFo, similar to Fried Frank, we use it as an additive factor. Again, we're moving quickly, we're reviewing a lot of applications, and this could be a way for a candidate to stand out amongst the pack. It also measures your success at the firm compared to what our attorneys that have been at the firm are very successful. So again, it could also be if you move forward and hear from the firm that you have a high suited score, that means that you could also be a really good fit for that firm. We use it at the end of the application process to help us make final decisions. So again, if we're trying to decide between two very similar candidates, this could be the factor that takes you to the next step. And then also, I've seen it used where if someone is maybe slightly below our grade guidelines, that could be what brings them over to the offer stage.
I love that. No, thanks Ashley and Nancy for that description. All right, so we have some really good questions before we move on to our final question. We're gonna do some rapid fire, kind of like the end, and I think I'm at the end of a game show. We're gonna do some rapid fire questions here. Maybe we'll give just one or two responses for each, just so we can move through some of them. As the timeline is moving quickly, one student had a good question about how important is it about being on Moot Court, Law Review, or other journal for next year? Is that something that firms take into consideration as a valuable piece of candidacy? Anyone want to chime in there?
You know, if they're applying early, it might not come up, but what I want to tell people is do it. I mean, absolutely. If it's interesting to you, if you want to be on Law Review, you should do that. And Moot Court, you know, you shouldn't change what you would otherwise have done with your law school experience just because you're trying to get a 1L job or a 2L job, whatever that is. You know, be true to yourself and why you went to law school in the first place. The information just might not be available to us when you're making your decision.
Great. All right, I'm going to move on to the next question, rapid fire. This might be an easy one to answer, but I want to make sure it's answered. For the firms who are opening up their application portals before the semester is over or before grades are out. Do you plan to fill your summer class before the grades are out? So does anyone want to chime in there?
I think it's possible.
Plan. What's a plan anymore? What's
Yeah.
a plan? Sorry, Cherie, I cut you off.
No, go ahead. Go ahead, Rachel.
No.
No.
But what's a plan, right? So I just think like be flexible and apply to the firms that you want to. We open today, not because my expectation is that we're going to fill the class, but because the market is moving in such a way that it feels like we as firms don't want to be left behind the same way that students don't want to be left behind. So we might start interviewing tomorrow. We might start interviewing in a month. We're going to see what the candidate pool looks like and be responsive to the candidate pool in the same way we're going to be responsive to what the market is doing. So, do I think firms are going to make it to OCI? Don't tell your law school career services that I said that, but I don't. We still sign up for OCIs because we will use that to supplement and potentially as a backstop if we need to. But I would be prepared to move on firms pre-OCI, pre-second semester grades. Will we make offers pre-second semester grades? Probably. But again, it depends on what the candidate pool is and the strength of the candidates and how much interest they show in us, right? Because like, again, speaking to the yield, we're not going to make offers to candidates who are great, who we don't think there's a lot of interest in, because that's holding a spot for someone else who could be really interested. So as uncomfortable as this all is for you guys watching, it is so uncomfortable for us. Like we've been doing this for a really long time and we thought we knew kind of how to succeed and how this would go, and we don't. That was a really long answer. That wasn't rapid fire at all. I'm sorry.
No, but that's helpful. I think if there's anything that to glean from the answers is that even, in this position, because of the way that the market is moving, even firms aren't sure exactly what the plan is because things are moving quickly and it's all about the market and the candidates and all that. So that's something to keep in mind. I am going to say that the Summer Associate of Job Fair is on May 30th. And firms will be interviewing students at the job fair. And I can say that with confidence. So
Yes.
if you had any doubt about the job fair, that will be happening there. But Rachel made a lot of good points there. That leads into another good question that was in the Q&A. What if a firm is doing OCI at my school? Is it helpful to apply directly away for OCI? And also being mindful, I'm just going to add my own spin to that question. OCI is a very general term. The timeline of OCIs right now is kind of all over the map between mid-May all the way till mid to late June. So just keeping that in mind with the question, but curious if anyone has anything to chime in on that one.
If you're ready, apply. If you're not ready, wait for your OCI.
Yeah.
I mean, it's actually kind of easy with that, just do it when you're ready.
Yeah, I think picking off of that too, just after everything that everyone else has mentioned, is that you should think about the timing of your school's OCI. And if it is later, you might want to get prepared to submit your direct application earlier. I know there are still a few schools that are hanging on to that end of July date. So for any schools, even those that are probably towards the end of June, I think if you're really interested in the firm, you should definitely apply and then also bid on the firm for OCI.
No, that's super helpful. All right, so we're going to move on to our last question, which is my favorite question, and we're also going to give out some prizes here. So, in 30 seconds or less, why should a law student join your firm? This is your chance to plug the firm. Our rule for those students who have been on our programs, our famous rule at Summer Associate Hub, you are not allowed to say it's the people, because as you will learn as a 1L going through this process, somehow for every firm, it is always the people. We're still trying to figure that out. So we're not allowed to say it's the people. So Nancy, I'm going to start with you. 30 seconds or less. Why should a law student choose Fried Frank?
Look, we're a small, big firm. We have sophisticated clients. We have lots of opportunity for you early on. You'll get personalized attention, lots of support to help you get to that next step in your career. And we want you to be you. There's no mold that you need to fit into. We demand the best of ourselves for our clients, and we do so with a high degree of integrity. So if that sounds good to you, come into my breakout room after this.
I love the plug for the breakout room. For Nancy is the breakout room master. All right, so we're going to raffle off a Fried Frank sponsored umbrella. Daniel Kim, if you're with us, please state your name in the chat in the Q&A. Daniel Kim, let us know that you're here. All right, Rachel, you're next. 30 seconds or less. Why should a law student choose Proskauer?
I think similar, I'm not going to piggyback totally on Nancy, but it's the class size, right? There's something really special about having a bespoke custom experience that is different for a lot of New York firms. I also think that our clients are pretty amazing. So if you want to do really interesting work for really interesting clients that touch all of our practices, so we have some kind of premier practices that you may have read about, but all of our practice groups touch those industries. So if you want to be exposed to a lot of different things, I think it's a really nice place to do that. And if you want to get to the end of your summer program and the end of your first and second and third year and feel like you've had a really customized personal experience, that is kind of what we pride ourselves on. So I think if that sounds like a good option for you, Nancy, come to my breakout room. Also, Nancy's like the best in the business. So you guys are really like having her on this panel. She's like number one. I'm going to steal all her answers.
All right. Well, Proskauer sponsored coffee tumbler and gift card. Jasmine Felix, if you're with us, please let us know in the Q&A. Jasmine Felix. All right. Cherie, on to you. 30 seconds or less. Why should a law student choose Wilson Sonsini?
Okay, well, we focus on life science and tech companies. And so if that's something that you're interested in, you come work for us and you get to have easy access to all of these clients that are doing such amazing things. And it just makes your work more interesting because, everything that we're doing is in the news and you can read about it and it just makes you feel good that you're working with clients that are helping to change the world. And it's just that it gives you a different access to smaller teams and to working with some of the brightest people. It's a great place to be. It's also a very transparent place, which I appreciate having been at different firms. You can't understand that or appreciate that until you've probably left the place that you're at. But let me tell you, it's really valuable to be at a place that really cares about the people at the firm. And I'll steal Nancy and Rachel now and, come learn more in our breakout rooms.
All right. So Wilson Sonsini sponsored travel charger, which is very useful. Catherine Angel, if you're with us, please let us know in the Q&A. Catherine Angel. All right. Last but not least, Ashley, 30 seconds or less. Why should a law student choose MoFo?
Thanks, Albert. I think one of the main things I wanted to talk about is at MoFo, we don't just hire talent, we invest in it. And I wanted to just share some quick highlights of some programs that we're really proud of. So starting with Ready to Launch and our Wetmore Bridge program initiatives. These programs you can actually start participating in as a 3L, and they're designed to bridge the gap between law school and practice with coaching, management skills, workshops, and professional development sessions. We also recently launched My MoFo Success Frameworks, which are clear performance expectations for every level, starting at the summer associate level. So it really is empowering associates to manage their career progression effectively. We also have MoFo Next, which is our career center for advancement. We believe at MoFo that your career path is a web, not a ladder. So we have MoFo Next to help provide lifelong career support from everything from finding a secondment or finding a full-time opportunity. And then lastly, we offer market-leading associate bonus program where you're rewarded for not only your billable hours, but also for pro bono diversity and inclusion and your business development contributions. So if you want to summer like a MoFo, I encourage you to join our breakout room.
All right. These are also my favorite people, so you all get a pass. But if anyone's seen the movie Inception, for every 30 seconds on Earth, it's like 4 years on another planet. That's the concept of time we have on this panel. But I love the reasons everybody gave. This is really awesome. MoFo came out hot with the swag today. We have a prize raffle for a MoFo backpack, Uber gift card, and a MoFo water bottle. Camilla Coyante, if you're with us, please let us know in the chat. I think we have 2 repeat winners, by the way, tonight from previous sessions. So super lucky. I'm glad you joined us again. Let me know that you're here. This is a really, really nice discussion. We covered a lot of quote unquote $1 million questions, some of the questions that we've been hearing from students over and over. So I hope everybody found it helpful. Thanks to everyone for this really, really wonderful panel discussion. We're going to open the breakout rooms in a second. The breakout rooms are super easy. Once we open them, you can just choose which room you want to go to. You could ask questions. You can introduce yourself. I'm sure some of the breakout rooms will have attorneys in addition to the recruiting directors who are on this panel, as well as other members of the recruiting team. So please take advantage of it. One thing I like to mention to students is don't squat. everyone on this panel plugged their, to join their breakout room. Everyone's taking the time out of their evening to join us. So don't squat, bounce around from the different breakout rooms, hear what the different firms have to offer, what makes them unique. And a lot of really nice connections have been made in these breakout rooms over the last couple of years. So I hope you take advantage of it. Thanks again to everyone on this panel. It was really, really nice and informative, and I appreciate you all joining.